Work hard for what you want in life.
You work hard for what you want in life.
That your word is your bond, that you do what you say you're going to do.
That your word is your bond, and you do what you say.
That you treat people with dignity and respect.
That you treat people with respect.
Reach of your dreams and your willingness to work hard.
The strength of your dreams and your willingness to work for them.
Work hard.
Work hard.
Work hard. Work hard. Work hard. Work hard.
Hey guys, it's Tatum. Welcome to another episode of the Black Girl Boss Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode. Milan had made an announcement that she's going to be moving to Atlanta. So definitely reach out to her, you guys, and wish her best of luck on her move. If you're in Atlanta, hit her up and maybe go to lunch or something like that. But I'm so proud of her and everything that she's doing. And I'm just excited for all the amazing things that God is going to do in her life. So also Merry Christmas. This episode comes out on Christmas Day. So I just want to say Merry Christmas to everyone who celebrates the holiday. Happy holidays to anyone who celebrates anything else. This is just an amazing time of just love, family, good food, good drinks, good vibes. So just enjoy it. And for you guys who may not, who the holidays may not be a great time for you for whatever reason, I just want you to think of ways to just enjoy this holiday anyway. You know, I know for me, this is the first holiday where my father is actually not around because he's incarcerated, but we made sure to go visit him, made sure to keep him abreast on everything that's going on. So still made this time as good as possible. And my boyfriend, well, my fiance and I are going to go to my mother's house and spend Christmas morning with her, open up some gifts. So just find a way that even if this time may be a little bit difficult for you for whatever reason, to just still make it great, still appreciate all of God's blessings and still just find ways to be happy. So in today's episode, well, I guess I kind of let the cat out of the bag a little bit, but I got engaged over my vacation, you guys. Like, this is so weird. But y'all hear me talk about Bay on the podcast here and there. So yeah, he popped the question. So your girl is getting married out here in these streets. So January 19, 2019 is the date that we set. So I got a full year to plan. Now, listen, y'all know I'm not about to let my business go to the wayside because a wedding is coming up. So I'm really like putting my head down to make sure that I'm tightening up in a lot of areas so that I can be able to balance this new responsibility, this new exciting responsibility of planning a wedding while still growing my business and still trying to take things to the next level. So you guys will get to hear that whole process over the next year on this podcast. So today, you guys, I wanted to talk about 5 things to leave in 2017. This is the last episode of 2017. We have made it to 1 year in podcasting. This show has just grown so much. So I really just want to thank you guys so much for listening to us every week, for sharing this episode. So I took some notes and I want to go over these, for the 5 things to leave in 2017. Now, 2018, you guys, we're going to do a theme for the podcast. 2018 for Black Girl Bosses everywhere. Y'all listening? Y'all got your paper out? Listen, the year 2018 is the year of the boss up. Now, boss up sounds cute. Like, I like it. It sounds nice. However, bossing up requires a lot of responsibility on your part, on my part, on everybody's part. So the year of the boss up means that these 5 things that I'm going to talk about, we really have to tackle those in the next week so that we're really hitting the ground running in 2018, or at least create some type of strategic plan to where you're not taking these things too far into 2018. So again, 2018 for this podcast, for everybody that's listening to me, is the year of the boss up. So the first thing we're going to boss up and do, the first thing that we're going to leave in 2017 is not taking responsibility. Now, I know y'all like, okay, Tatum, what are you talking about? I do take responsibility. Now, what I mean by that is I mentioned earlier that there are some things that I'm going to have to tighten up about this year. And when I was on a plane coming back from vacation, I was taking some notes. I was like journaling to God and like listening to one of my favorite preachers. And one of the things that he was talking about was how a lot of times we're so used to working on ourselves that we don't require when we've already got there. And this is something that really spoke to me because my whole life has been about growth, me trying to become the woman that I am today. But I had to kind of stop and come up for air and realize that the person that I've already become her, and I'm already opening myself up or entering into that next level that God has promised me. But in order for me to get to accept the things in that next level, I have to be ready for them. And so I know I mentioned to you guys on our spirituality episode, or the episode we were talking about being an entrepreneur and being a Christian, my prayer journal. And I'm coming to the end of it. But when I went back to the beginning in 2016, when I first started it, the end of 2016, when I first started it, and I wrote down 3 things that I wanted God to do for me. Number 1 was a husband. So shout out to the Lord for coming through with the fiance at the end of the year. Number 1 was a husband. Number 2 was a successful business, more specifically, full-time entrepreneurship. And then number 3 was financial freedom. I didn't want to be penny pinching or giving up things that I like in order to survive, or eating spaghetti or anything like that. I didn't want that. I wanted to be financially, just be able to do the things that I wanted to do. And as the year comes to, and at the end of that list, though, I was writing down just preparation. So the word that was coming to me at that time was preparation. I had to prepare for what I was asking for. So now here we are, over a year later. God has given me all of those things, but it's come with preparation. I had to tighten up in some areas, and I had to take responsibility that in order for me to unlock the blessings that I'm asking for, I had to do some stuff. And so some of the things that I did this year was I started fasting. I started being intentional about spending time with God. I started separating myself from things, people, situations that brought out any type of negative side of me. I unfollowed things on social media that spoke to anything that went against what I was preparing for. I was intentional about relationships. I think at that time, my boyfriend and I were together, but we were just now getting together. But I was being very intentional about, like, listen, I want a husband. I'm not really here to be playing games. I'm not really here to just be in no situationship. I'm good by myself. So if you're going to be in my life, it has to be intentional. It has to be a purpose attached to it. And we have to be on the same page, because I don't have to sell you on why you should be serious about me. You have to come to the table as a man, and we have to decide that that's something that we want. And so it was something that we wanted. But again, that was about being intentional and tightening up and preparing for what I said that I wanted. And even in addition to that, preparing certain things in my life. One of my biggest things I've told you guys before is I've always held being successful in my family life in the same regard as being successful in business, because I come from broken families. Everybody in my family is divorced. All of the women in my family are single. My parents are still together, but with all of the things that I've gone through with them and all the things that they've gone through in their relationship, that's not necessarily a relationship that I idolize. So I don't know what a healthy marriage looks like. And so when coming to that realization and asking God to send me a husband, I knew that I had to do some work on myself, because I didn't want to be the reason why I couldn't receive love from somebody. I didn't want to be the reason why God may have sent me my husband, but I ran him off because I had so much baggage. And so one of the things as I flipped through my prayer journal that I was really always asking God about was forgiveness, forgiving my parents for the things that they've done, forgiving and still loving through the things that was still going on. Like, my father's situation and things like that. There were still things going on that I had to be intentional about keeping my heart open and keeping my heart pure through, even when I had all the right to not want to do that. But I had to make sure that I was tightening up and not allowing my feelings to dictate my life, more so allowing the bigger picture and the things that I'm asking God for to dictate my life. So what I did was just was very intentional about being better with those relationships, asking God to open my heart, asking God to give me that spirit of forgiveness, asking God to allow me to be okay with doing certain things that my brokenness wouldn't allow me to do. Another thing was I've always been very inconsistent with my walk with God. So I had to be honest with God and be like, I've never had to consistently seek you. I don't know what that's like. I don't know how to hear your voice. I just know how to do what I want. I don't know how to surrender it to you and basically let you be the CEO and I just be the manager. I don't know how to do that. And so I was very honest with God and asking him, like, God, light a fire on the inside of me for you. Allow me to see the things that you're doing in my life so they can fuel my fire even more to be consistent. So again, these were all things that I had to do to tighten up for you guys. I had to take responsibility. I never once talked about how, my father, I already had abandonment issues and then he abandoned me again by being incarcerated. Or I never talked about watching my mother go through an abusive relationship and she lied to me or did XYZ. That's why our relationship isn't the way it's supposed to be. Like, I'm not putting any blame on anybody, but I'm taking responsibility for how I handle the situation and taking responsibility for my life so that I can look back on my years, etc., and be like, okay, you were prepared for what you didn't mess up what God gave you. Another thing that I did, like I mentioned before, was tithing. And through tithing, that was another area that I had to take responsibility in. I couldn't ask God to increase my finances when I'm not doing my part of giving him his 10%. So now I know that God can trust me. If I give her this $1 million, I know that she's going to give me my 10%. So again, it's all about taking responsibility. And even in that, those are some examples of how I did that this year. But I'm looking at my goals for 2018. I'm looking at not only my goals, but the things God has already told me is going to happen for me in 2018 that I can't even, to be honest, personally fathom happening. I'm going to share a lot about those things as time goes on. But I was looking and I was like, where can I tighten up? And to be honest with you guys, I'm good when it comes to like the business part. I'm good when it comes to the strategy. I'm good when it comes to the actual like business acumen of getting these things that God promised to me. But one thing that I have to tighten up in is spiritually. Now I know y'all probably like, what? You just talked about XYZ? No, new levels is seriously new devils. And something that this pastor was talking about in this sermon was about how like the devil at each level of your life, the devil gets a little bit more creative. You know what I mean? And for me, where I'm going in 2018, I really have to make sure that my spiritual side is so solid because I do not want to mess up these things that God has told me is going to happen for me. And I know that because God told me these things that I'm going to go through a lot of opposition in order to get them. So I have to be very intentional about making sure my ear for God is solid, making sure that my business acumen doesn't overshadow the voice of God. I have to make sure that I decrease myself more and more so that he can increase in me and I can make the best decisions when it comes to my business. Because God is just not trying to work on me as a woman. He's trying to give me a rich and satisfying life with my business as well. And that's something I want you guys to listen to take in as well. Like God wants to be a part of your business because he has the strategies for you. So yeah, an area of tightening up for me was spiritually. So something that I had heard God say to me was rework your schedule. The average I'm not going to say every, but the average millionaire has a routine, right? I've been studying millionaires because I know that's the next level for me. So most millionaires like exercise, most of them read books, most of them like do some type of spiritual exercise, but I needed to create a routine. I already knew that. But my routine has to be more spiritual because God is the one that's going to give me my million. God is going to be the one to give me these things. So I had to create a routine. I had to tighten up. I couldn't, fasting on Monday only is not going to be enough anymore. Now, I'm not saying I have to fast every single day, but Mondays were the days where I spent the most time with God because I was fasting. But now it's like I have to do what I do on Mondays every single day, and not just, and again, it doesn't have to be fasting, but the things that I do, the journaling, the reading the Bible, the praying, the being still, the being quiet, things like that. I have to do that every single day. I have to prioritize my spiritual life over my business, in a sense of I don't need to wake up at 5 o'clock and then go straight to grinding. I need to wake up and go straight to praying, talking to God, asking for direction and things like that, so that by the time I get to working on my business, I'm good. It may be something that I wanted to do that day, but that's not going to be the thing to make me my million. So I got to listen to God for him to direct me on what it is that I'm supposed to do. So that's an area that I have to tighten up in. I have to be more disciplined about that routine. I have to be more disciplined. I told you guys one of the things that I wanted to stop doing in 2018 was cursing. Pray for me, y'all. But one of the things I have to be more disciplined in, or I have to tighten up with in 2018, is my mouth. And that's going to be very difficult for me. I've been saying what I want to say my whole life, no matter how it came out. So I have to tighten up with that as well. And then the last thing I want to share about what I personally have to tighten up with, and I'm being 100% open with you guys, transparent, letting you into my inner thoughts and my inner journaling and things like that, so that you can understand that I'm not just sitting on some type of platform preaching to you about what you need to be doing. I'm telling you the things that I need to do, the things that have worked for me, the things that made 2017 an amazing year for me, but still the things I'm going to have to do more of in order to make 2018 even better. But yeah, so the last thing I had to do was the last thing that I have to tighten up on in 2018 is being more vocal. So I'm relatively a quiet person, and this podcast and like any type of live or something like that I do is probably the most talking that I do. I'm pretty quiet for the most part, but I have to be a lot more vocal every day and I have to walk in my power a lot more. So like I said, I've been so used to growing that I don't stop and look at how far I've come, or don't stop and be like, hey, you've arrived to who you've been working toward. So walk in that as you tighten up and prepare for that next level, or walk in that next level. So yeah, being a lot more vocal. I know for me, I'm introverted, but I also just get tired of just meaningless stuff. I'm not really into the fluff. I don't run my business that way. I think that's why my clients and I are able to see such great results, because I don't operate in fluff. I operate in facts and execution. But I'm so tired of like just the fluffy stuff that I see. People just talking about nonsense, or people talking about let's say the 7 keys to being successful, but God is not one of them keys. When I know full and well that you can do all the things that you want to do, but if you don't let God in your business, you're not going to reach your next level. But nobody's talking about that. Or the people who, let's say, are selling you this beautiful lifestyle, or selling you all these things on how to create a business, but they might be, let's say, in a network marketing business where they haven't even had to build a business from scratch. They just had to build upon a system that was already given to them by somebody else. So it's just a lot of fluff, a lot of pretty pictures, but no facts, a lot of motivation, but no strategy. That's not how I operate. So because there's such an abundance of that, I get so freaking annoyed, and I just be quiet and go back to minding my business. But something that God is really calling me to do is be a lot more vocal. So you'll see me being a lot more vocal in 2018. So definitely more lives, more periscopes, more things of that nature, where I'm going to really, really be letting you guys in more than I already have. One thing that I realized about myself this year was that there was a level of insecurity that drove me a lot in business. And what I mean by that is, when I started my youth program, I started it with I started it, but then I brought somebody else on because I felt like I was lacking in some area and I needed somebody to validate me. Or even when it came to this podcast, I had the idea for this podcast, but I didn't think anybody would just listen to me by myself. So I brought somebody else on the podcast as well. And so now God is calling me to really walk in to who he has already molded me to be already by myself. And that is very scary. You know what I mean? It's very difficult because when you do things with other people, a lot of times you do have that somebody to lean back on, or you do have that somebody to bounce things off with. But I know for me, that was rooted more so of insecurity and me not feeling like I was enough. And one thing that God really worked with me on this year and told me is you are enough by yourself. Like, look at and that's not to take away from anybody or anybody that's in partnerships. This is just specific to Tatum. But God was like, look, you are enough. Look at everything that you've overcome. Look at how I'm the woman that I molded you to be. Look at this. You know, you've been through a lot, but you're still a good person. You've started a business from nothing and you're able to do it on a full-time basis. Like all of these things is happening. You're changing people's lives based off of the podcast, not even just their businesses, but their lives, etc. So I had to really kind of just like, oh, okay. That's why I told y'all last episode, like when I let the lioness out the cage, so to speak, and really just walk in, not let that you're not enough thing that was in my head for so long. Once I really walk in who I am without that, it's going to be a wrap. Not just to exalt myself, but it's going to be so many people who are going to be positively impacted by me being obedient to God. So again, those are the things that I have to tighten up with in 2018, that I have to take responsibility for. And again, none of these things, you guys, have anything to do with other people. A lot of times we like to blame stuff on other people and not take responsibility for our part. We looking at our business like, oh, my business didn't do what I wanted to do this year. I only made X amount of dollars this year. And we beating ourselves up, but we're not taking responsibility. It's time in 2018. It's time to boss up, put your feelings to the side and get to work on the facts. Why hasn't your business been gotten to the point that you wanted to get it to? Something's wrong. Figure out what's wrong. It might be a glitch in your system, or it might be a glitch in your personal life that's spilling over to your system, or it might be that you're not even allowing God to have a say so in the vision that he gave you. That's why you can't figure it out on your own. So again, the number one thing that we're leaving in 2017 is not taking responsibility. And in 2018, we're going to boss up and take responsibility for our business, take responsibility for our life, take responsibility for the things that we want to accomplish. And that means we're going to start preparing for them. So if you want to make six figures, take responsibility for coming up with the blueprint for that. If you aren't able to do that yourself, take responsibility and hire a coach or hire a consultant or hire somebody to help you do that. Take responsibility, because otherwise it's just not going to happen. So yeah, if you feel like that God has forgotten about you, take responsibility of seeking him. You know, turn down your plate and fast for a certain period of time for answers. Stop going to social media to get empty strategies and really go to God or go to somebody that's going to work with you and not give you a bunch of fluff. So yeah, number one thing we're leaving, in 2017 is not taking responsibility. So number two, the next thing that we're leaving in 2017 is the struggle. So what I mean by that is, a lot of times, I think this happens in both entrepreneurship as well as in Christianity, because for some reason, most of the time we go to God or church or wherever because we're going through some type of struggle and we're looking for hope. So we listen to podcasts like the Black Girl Boss Podcast because we're struggling in our businesses, or we're struggling in getting our businesses off the ground, but we're looking for hope. But what happens with that is when you get so caught up in the struggle, you don't know when you're not struggling anymore, or you get this false idea that the struggle is always supposed to be there, or the struggle somehow validates everything that you're doing. Or you don't know how to operate without struggle. You don't know how to just be successful. There's always some type of struggle. You don't know how to just be happy because you're so used to struggling. So that's why I think that's why we're going to leave this in 2017, because you're not always going to be struggling in entrepreneurship. There was a time where I really struggled in my business. I'm not struggling anymore. So the struggle is not the space that I'm in. The space that I'm in is preparing, tightening up, and doing what I need to do to embrace this next level. So the struggle, again, you guys, is something that we get too caught up in. Everybody's like, oh, the grind. At some point, if you're doing it, the grind the right way, you're going to reach what you're grinding for. So how are you going to know how to enjoy that if all you know how to do is struggle and grind? Like, this topic just annoys me because, like I said, the struggle sometimes just gets to be something that we're so used to that we don't know how to operate without it, or we only go to God when we're struggling in some area that we don't know how to just walk in God's blessings, or we don't know how to just thank God for the small things. You don't have to struggle to be grateful. You don't have to struggle to embrace your blessing. You don't have to struggle to be blessed at all. So, again, we can't get caught up in that struggle. And most of the time, though, and this is something that I wrote down when I was on the plane as well, your struggle is where your gift is. So there might be certain areas that you're struggling in your life, and that's the area that God wants to bless you. So if you're struggling with money, then God probably wants to financially bless you. But there's, again, some responsibility that comes on your part. So tithing, even if you only made $10, tithe that dollar, because God wants to bless you in that area. So one thing I want you guys to do as your homework, in addition to figuring out where you need to tighten up in, I want you to really look at the areas that you struggled in this year, the areas that you feel like you're walking into 2018 still struggling with, because the last thing that we need to do is walk into a new year saying, oh, I'm not going to struggle in this area anymore, with no type of plan, because we're just going to do the same thing. So really look at where you're struggling, and figure out, like, where is the blessing in that? Find the blessing in that struggle, and find how you can take responsibility to turn that struggle around so that you have a plan on how not to deal with that anymore. And also, you have to armor up against the struggle. Like, the devil is really out here trying to kill, steal, and destroy. So we got to look at those things and figure out, oh, my money is where I struggled at. Let me give my 10%, because I know that by me tithing, that there are certain things that are promised to me. I know that by me being obedient in this area, there are certain things that are promised to me. So I'm armoring up in that area. You're preparing for war. You're preparing to defeat that struggle. So that's how you armor up. You armor up with the word of God. You armor up with obedience. You armor up by finding the blessing in that, so that you can allow your gift to show and not just get caught up in the pity party of the struggle. So a good example of that for me was finances. I asked God for financial freedom. And one of the things that he had me do this year was really tithe. And as I tithe, my increase got bigger, and my tithing got bigger, because I've said this before, tithing $3 and tithing $3,000 is a huge difference. So even as the money increases, you still have to tithe. So number 3, so again, in 2018, we're going to boss up and not struggle anymore, or not view any difficult situation as a struggle. We're going to analyze it. We're going to find the blessing in it. We're going to armor up, figure out how we can beat that struggle, and we're going to overcome it. So number 3, the next thing that we're going to leave in 2017 is taking shortcuts in both life and in business. So we live in like a microwave society because of social media. We live in a lose 5 pounds in 5 days society, or we live in a drink this drink every day and you're going to lose weight, or you're going to get snatched, or put up $20 and you're going to flip it real quick to $120. Like, this is a society that we live in, but that just doesn't work. And we talked about this when it came to the Don't Build Sandcastles episode, where it's important to really lay a foundation. So in 2017, we're going to leave that taking shortcuts there. We're going to really, in 2018, we're going to boss up and focus on the plan that needs to happen in order to reach our goals. Forget about the time. Stop trying to make it happen quick. Some things can happen quick. Some things need a little bit of time to build on. Preparation takes time. So, and preparation is a part of not taking shortcuts. Creating a budget that you can stick to is a part of preparation, so that your frivolous spending while you're making let's say $30,000 isn't going to happen when you're making $300,000. This is a part of not taking shortcuts. Everything, this tightening up that we talked about in the first point, is a part of not taking shortcuts. So stop spending $30, $17, $7, $27, $29 here and there on a bunch of things that you're trying to puzzle piece together to your success, and instead really either invest in something long term, or really just spend time with God, or really just take a look into your business on how you can create a plan that's going to make you accomplish your goals, as opposed to just buying into some type of shortcut. Also, you can't take shortcuts in life either. Like, there's another point on here, so I'm not going to I'm going to really get into that one, but you can't take shortcuts, you guys. So we're going to leave that laziness. We talk about entrepreneurship being trendy all the time, and that's because people take shortcuts. You can just put entrepreneur in your Instagram bio and all of a sudden you're an entrepreneur. That's not how that works. You have to actually have a business in order to be a business owner. So let's stop telling the world about what we're doing and actually do it. Stop taking shortcuts where you're like, oh, I'm a graphic designer, accepting clients. You don't have an EIN number. You don't have a business bank account. You don't have a legal business on paper. You have no idea how you even price your stuff. You just did everything overnight, thinking that, you're going to be this successful entrepreneur. That's not how that works. We've talked about this all year. So and that's why I'm not going to get into too much detail about that, but really just leave taking shortcuts into 2018. And in 2017, we're going to boss up and do things the right way. So number 4 kind of adds on to that. We're going to leave making excuses in 2017. We're going to boss up, like the first point in this says, and take responsibility. A lot of, I know, have y'all ever just listened to somebody and every time you say something, or you may bring up something that they may have done that you don't like or something like that, and they always have an excuse? Don't be that person. There's always a reason why they couldn't, because of this or because of that. Don't be that person. We're going to leave making excuses in 2017. A big excuse that I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs is, I can't grow my business because of my job. I need to just get rid of my 9-to-5 so that I can be successful in business. If you can't balance your time with your 9-to-5 and your business, you ain't going to be able to balance your time with your business. So discipline has no respect of circumstances. If you want to be successful in business, you have to be disciplined every step of the way. So you have to be disciplined in your schedule while you still have that steady income, while you still have that 9-to-5, while you don't have that pressure of not knowing how you're going to pay your bills. Stay at that job until you get your business to a certain point, or until God tells you it's time to leave. But yeah, not making excuses. Your job is not hindering you from having a successful business. You're hindering you from having a successful business because you're spending the time that you say you don't have on complaining about your job instead of using that time to build your business. So that was me being very blunt with you guys, because that's something that somebody needed to hear. Or your business is not is not where you want it to be because you don't have the money. It's because you're spending the money on the wrong things. It's because you haven't made the sacrifices necessary to get your business where you want it to be. You're not converting clients the way that you want to because something's wrong with your selling. It's not, oh, I can't, I'm talking to all these people and these people aren't converting. There's a glitch in the system. So go find a glitch. Again, stop making excuses and figure out the solution. We're entrepreneurs. We solve problems. So if you spend time making excuses instead of solving problems, then you might be in the wrong field, or you need to reevaluate your mindset, because entrepreneurs don't make excuses. We jump off a bridge and somebody pushes us off a cliff. We build an airplane on the way down. That's just how we do. So in 2018, we got to boss up and stop making excuses and start making things happen. And so number 5, the last thing that we're leaving in 2017 is ignoring personal growth for business growth. I say growth with an F. Sorry, y'all. I'm tired. But yeah, so we're going to leave ignoring your personal growth for business growth in 2017. And a lot of people, one of my favorite things to say to myself even right now is excellence cannot be compartmentalized. I cannot be a successful entrepreneur or excellent in business and negating my personal life or negating my health. One thing that I failed at this year, I'm not making excuses, I'm telling you straight up, I failed at it, was to get a healthier lifestyle. I was able to make adjustments, but I didn't execute it totally. And so because of that, I have to tighten up in that area in 2018, especially with a wedding coming in 2019. I need to be snatched. Okay. So, yeah, that was an area that I failed at. And my business was thriving, but my health, I wasn't sick or anything, but I believe in being proactive instead of reactive. I don't need a doctor to tell me I got high blood pressure for me to be like, oh man, I need to get in shape. So I failed in that area. So again, excellence can't be compartmentalized. So I need to work on being excellent in every single area. Even when it comes to my marriage that I'm going to have in the next year, I don't want to be successful and have a failing marriage. That doesn't work for me. Excellence cannot be compartmentalized. So you can't ignore that. You can't be like, oh, I'm such a boss. My business is successful. My house looks crazy when I come home. I don't have any friends, but my business is successful though. My family, we totally fell off. I don't even talk to my mama no more, but my business is successful. That's not how that works. So you got to boss up in every area of your life in 2018. You got to boss up in those areas that you're overlooking. Now, sometimes some things do fall through the cracks, but again, we're not making excuses. So we have to look in those cracks and figure out how we can be excellent across the board, and not just be great at one thing and terrible at the other. So again, to go over this list one more time, the 5 things that we're leaving in 2017 are 1, not taking responsibility, 2, the struggle, 3, taking shortcuts, 4, making excuses, and 5, ignoring personal growth for business growth. So again, I hope you guys have a very, very Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for your support of this podcast. I will see you guys in 2018.